YouTube. I'm here to do my prediction video for UFC Fight Night, Font versus Garbrandt. Let's start at the bottom. The first fight is Rafael Alves versus Demir. I can't say his last name. To me, Alves has some decent jiu-jitsu and okay striking. I just don't think it's going to matter. I don't think he's got the wrestling to get Demir down or hold him down. And I just think in terms of overall striking, Demir's just way better. I think he's just going to pick him apart for 3 straight rounds and win an easy decision. There's really not too much to say about this fight. I just think Demir's too fast and too good with his grappling and overall striking to get taken down or controlled. And because of that, like I said, he just picks him apart for 3 rounds and wins a solid decision. Next is Damir Hadzog, same first name as the last guy, versus Yancy Medeiros. My only thing is Yancey's been out for a while, but I mean, as long as he looks like how he used to, I think that Demir doesn't have the real wrestling to kind of take him down and hold him down. I mean, he might land some takedowns here and there, but I think Yancey will be able to get back to the feet. On the feet, I think the striking is pretty close. I think Yancey's a little bit more technical and Demir hits a little bit harder. It's just kind of who can fight the way they want to fight, and I'm leaning ever so slightly towards Yancey. I think even if it does get into a brawl, I think he's a little bit bigger, and that's going to help him. I do think that like if they clinch up like knees and elbows and stuff like that, it's going to favor Yancey. And I do think it's going to be close, but I'm going to lean ever so slightly towards Yancey. I think his overall size and just better striking is going to pay off towards the end, and I think he's going to get a late TKO in the third. Next is Damir Darkov versus, I can't say this guy's name. It's a super short notice replacement. It was supposed to be Julian Paiva, but that guy missed weight really bad. So, David, I can't say his last name. Basically, David Darvarko, I think, is going to win pretty easily. His opponent is really just a grappler. His name I can't say. It's like Juan Camilo, I think. I think Juan is really just a grappler, and that's about it. And taking this fight on such short notice on a guy like David, who's too good with takedown defense and striking overall, I think David stays on the feet and picks him apart easily. Next is Josh Colombo versus Xiao Yaolin. To me, Xiao looks like he's decent overall, but he's not the greatest grappler, and I think Josh is good kind of everywhere. He's primarily a striker, but I think he's got solid grappling. And I think that he'll just use his grappling this fight. I think he'll take this fight to the ground, beat him up, and eventually win by sub. So I got Josh winning by first or second round rear naked choke. I think he's got a huge advantage in the grappling. I think he's just going to use it all night. Next is Bruno Da Silva versus Victor Rodriguez. And to me, Victor looks like he's okay, but I think Bruno's just a little bit better everywhere. I think his striking, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu are all better than Victor's. And I think he's just going to be able to kind of beat him up on the feet, probably take him down and win by sub. Like I said, I just think Bruno Silva should be getting a guy a little bit higher at this point, and I think he's going to win this fight pretty solidly. Next is Court McGee versus Claudio Silva, and this fight's really weird because I actually think Court McGee, despite the fact that he hasn't been doing well recently, is probably a little bit better overall in this fight. I think his striking overall is better, and even though Silva's the better grappler, I think Court's the stronger wrestler. Court has never been submitted his entire career. He's only been finished 1 time by strikes his entire career. And he doesn't get taken down a whole lot. Like, his takedown defense is really, really good, and his ability to get back up to the feet is also really solid. And like I said, Claudio Silva is not like this amazing striker. He's just willing to strike with anybody because he doesn't care if he gets taken down. And I don't think Court's going to take him down. I think Court's just going to outpoint him on the feet. I mean, I know Court's the underdog in this fight, and he should be, but at the same time, stylistically, I do think this favors him. I think as long as he's not completely done, you know, he keeps this on the feet, which I think he can. I think he wins a solid decision because I do think his striking overall is a lot better. As long as he's just defensively sound, doesn't get hit with a wild big shot from Silva, I think he picks him apart for 3 straight rounds and wins a solid decision. So I'm leaning towards Court to win a 30-27 decision. Next is Ben Rothwell versus Chris Bennett, and to me, Chris is basically just a big striker. I think the longer the fight goes, he tends to gas. He's really just this big first-round flashy kind of striker. I think Rothwell overall has the better chin. I think he's got the better endurance. I think he's the better striker and wrestler if you really wanted to try to take this fight to the ground. I just think Rothwell's better everywhere, and he took this, you know, Chris is taking this fight on short notice, so his already not amazing gas tank is going to look even worse. You know, Chris is a fun fighter. I'm not saying he isn't that, but I just don't think, other than him catching Rothwell with a big shot in the first 3 minutes, I think Rothwell wins this fight in the second or third round by TKO or submission all day, every day. And that's what I'm leaning towards. I just think Rothwell has way more ways to win this fight. I think he's way more well-rounded overall, and I think other than him getting caught with a big shot right off the bat, he wins this fight any way he wants in round 2 or 3. Next, we got Jack Hermanson versus Edmund Shabazian, and this is kind of the same thing. I think the longer this goes, the much more it favors Jack. Jack Hernandez just way better on the ground, and I think overall striking is probably better. Like, Edmonds faster and hits harder, but that's about it. I think in terms of overall striking technique, I think Jack's, I don't know if he's better, but I think his volume's a lot better. And I think Edmund, we've already seen that as long as guys are able to kind of mix it up against him and push a pace, which Jack, that's his whole game, is just pushing a hard pace, they can kind of beat him. I mean, his last fight really showed that. When it was constant striking, grappling, he couldn't keep up that pace, and he just gassed really bad. And I think Hernandez just needs to do the same thing, strike and grapple, strike and grapple. As long as he doesn't get caught with a huge shot, I think he wins. I think he can keep that pace for, he's kept that pace for 5 rounds in tons of fights. We've seen it before. And I don't think Edmund can keep that pace. And I think come the 3rd round, Jack's going to eventually end up in mount and get an arm triangle or a rear naked choke. So I'm leaning towards Jack to win by either late 2nd, early 3rd submission. Next is Ricardo Ramos versus Billy Agrello. To me, this fight's really close. I think both these guys are solid striker, jiu-jitsu guys. Billy's probably the stronger wrestler overall, but I would say Ramos is the better striker. So the jiu-jitsu, I'd say, is about even. It's really tough because I think that Billy could probably grind out Ramos, but I think Ramos just, like I said, his striking is better, and I think his overall finishing ability is better. So it's really close, but I'm leaning ever slightly towards Ramos. I just think that, like I said, his striking is better, and I think his submission ability overall is better. I think Billy probably keeps a little bit better of a pace and has better wrestling, but I think Ramos is eventually going to wind up on top of him or on his back or something and win by rear naked choke or just land some big shots and TKO Billy. Like, I'm leaning ever so slightly towards Ramos, but this is probably one of the closest fights on the whole card. Next is Felicia Spencer versus Normand Dumont, and this is not a close fight. Felicia Spencer, unless she's completely done after that beating from Amanda Nunes, beats 90% of the women at featherweight, if not 95%. It's like, what she does to most fighters is what she's going to do to pretty much everybody. The only people that have been able to beat her are Cyborg and Amanda, who are like the 2 best women fighters of all time. Felicia Spencer's grappling is just too good for most women, especially at featherweight. Most of them can't grapple for shit. And I think that's what's going to happen in this fight. I think she's going to get a takedown, beat Normand up, and eventually win by either TKO or submission because her grappling is just too good. So yeah, I'm leaning towards Spencer. Next is Justin Tafa versus Jared Vanderaa, and I think this fight will be a fun back-and-forth striker fight, but I think Justin Tafa is the better striker, and I think he's going to win by knockout. There's not too much to say about this fight. They're both... It's really weird that this fight is so high up on the card instead of like Rothwell versus Barnett, when these two guys are so young in their career, and there's not too much to say about them other than they're fun strikers, and I think Tafa is going to win by knockout, because I think he's the slightly better striker. But yeah, that's all I got to say about that. I'm leaning towards Tafa. Next is Yashanan versus Carla Esparza, and this is my thing. I think that Yan showed in her last fight that she can be taken down and controlled by good wrestlers. Carla, as long as she doesn't do what she did in her last fight, which was like go for heel hooks in rounds that she was basically up the whole time and then almost lost a split decision against someone that she dominated. That was the most annoying thing I'd ever seen, when Carla almost lost a fight that, had she not gone for heel hooks at the end of the rounds, would have just won a 30-27 decision. I feel like Yashanan in her last fight, she fought Claudia Gadelia, and Claudia was able to pin her against the fence and take her down. Even though she lost it 2-1, I felt like when she wasn't tired, she was able to take her down and hold her against the fence, and I think Carla can keep that pace for 3 rounds. I think Carla just needs to not be stupid, and she can win this fight all day. I think Yan has the better striking, but like I said, Carla has the big advantage in wrestling and grappling. As long as she does what she did to Marion Rodriguez, but not go for those like stupid heel hooks at the end, Carla wins this fight all day, in my opinion, 30-27. I think she can do exactly what Claudia did, just not get tired. So I'm leaning towards Carla to win a 30-27 decision. Finally, we got Rob Hart versus Cody Garbrandt, and this is the thing. Cody needs to not brawl with Rob. If he brawls with Rob, I think Rob's got the better chin and he'll knock him out. But in terms of everything else, I think Cody's better. I think he's the better striker. I think he's the better grappler. I think Cody's biggest strength has always been his hand speed. He's got the fastest hands in MMA, in my opinion. Like, whether he gets... You can say whatever you want about his chin. I'm talking about his hands. His hands, in my opinion, are the fastest. He has great foot movement. The problem is when he doesn't use his foot movement with his hand speed, when he just stands there and tries to throw. If he's able to avoid doing that, I think he can beat pretty much anybody. Like, Rob Font, we've seen him kind of get outstruck by guys, and then he just kind of will just wade in and take some shots to land his own. I think as long as Cody can avoid letting Rob do that and just kind of does what Max did to Calvin Kattar, that's what I think this fight's going to look a lot like. I think Cody, as long as he keeps on his bike and doesn't let Fonta just like throw hard at him against the fence, he should be able to circle around him and just outpoint him with the better hand speed and better foot movement. All he has to do is just not throw with him in the middle, and I think he can win this fight by decision. I think Rob will definitely win a round or two, but I think Cody wins at least a 48, if not 49, 46 decision. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe.